This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Yeah, I think it was good, hard practice. Obviously, you want to continue to get better and work on things, and I think everyone went out there and competed. I mean, your compete level, you bring it in practice, it's going to translate into a game, so that's what we did today.
That's what we did today. You know what we're going to do today, partner? We're going to do a show.
Yes. Late night hockey. We get a few of these every year.
I mean, late night all the way around.
This is I guess the Colorado game got late because it was the second half of a doubleheader, and we started much after the scheduled start time of 9:30 Eastern.
But you and I are taping
Tonight
our
is
show.
10 o'clock Eastern. That's typical for Vegas. The Lightning have their California trip like right around New Year's into January, but two of those games are afternoon games, so that's nice for the fans in Tampa.
And then we're going to afterwards do our show. Tape it up.
Tonight, yes.
So it's going to be long.
Yeah.
That's
so fans, if you have a reaction to the game tonight, basally fire off your questions right away.
Actually, that's a really good idea. Make sure you do that because
or comments.
I'm going to be sleeping. No. We're going to make sure.
Well, I hope not during the post. It's a long
post-game
show for you.
It'll be a long one, but
team flies back tomorrow. So I went to the practice yesterday. I basically had the full day off. For me, right? I mean, I did the show with you, but that was at 9 a.m. Pacific time, right? Mm-hmm. Lightning got to their hotel in Vegas very late. So I don't know if people are flying a lot, flying for their job, flying for leisure or whatever. I don't know if they're experiencing delays because we know what's happening in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So I think people go to the airport expecting delays. Lightning have a charter. I don't know if it's necessarily due to this, but the last two times that we have been scheduled to take off, leaving Salt Lake City and leaving Denver, we've sat on the tarmac for a while. It may be related to that. This isn't a show to discuss that. I'm just bringing this up as a way of explaining that it was a longer than normal flight to get to Vegas. Following Salt Lake City, it wasn't as noticeable because it was an afternoon game. So the team rolled into the hotel here in Las Vegas. I mean, it had to be like 2:30 Pacific time. I mean, it was a late night. So I did get up to do the show with you the next day, which felt like much earlier than 9 a.m. Pacific, but I did it. And then in the afternoon, Pacific time, the team had a practice. So I went over to the practice. We're not far from the rink. It was not a good practice at the beginning of practice. So as much as Brandon Hagel said it was a good, hard practice, it got to be a good, hard practice. John Cooper actually stopped them after an early drill. It wasn't even an overly intricate drill. It was basically like a passing skate down the ice and shoot. Yeah. And he stopped them. And you can hear the voice. You can't always pick up exactly what the words are when you're sitting in the stands. He was not happy. He expected more. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, we did roll in at 2:30 in the morning just a few hours ago, right? That may have something to do with it, but they pulled it together. And I think what Hagel said afterward is accurate. They kind of did a self-correction. The thing I'll mention from practice, and again, we are recording this live well before the Lightning get on the ice for what will probably be an optional skate. Unfortunately, Max Crozier left practice yesterday. He got hit with a puck. It was a drill. He was the defenseman back. Somebody took a shot. It caught him. Arm, hand, wrist, I don't know exactly what. And he left the ice immediately. So I didn't see him again after that. We'll have to monitor that situation. But if it transpires that for some reason Crozier is not in the lineup tonight, I'm telling you that's what happened. My hope is that he just got a bruise and they were like, take the rest of the practice off.
Right.
We'll have to wait and see. So as much as we often talk about like what's going to happen when this player comes back, what's going to happen when that player comes back, Gabby Shirley told me that Ben Pierce on Into the Blue asked her that question. I'm like, are you kidding me? We get that from the fans. What's Ben doing? She's like, I didn't want to answer the question. And I said, well, what I always say in the show is a lot can happen between this moment. I mean, they were really asking when Paul is going to come back, which our fans on our show ask a lot too. And Paul did skate. I mean, he came out kind of halfway through the practice and was out there, and he's in a regular jersey.
He's getting closer, right?
He's getting very close.
Yeah.
But look, stuff happens. That's all I'm saying. And if nothing happens and you have to make a hard decision, then you make the hard decision. I did see Stahoviak had 2 goals and an assist last night for Syracuse. They had a win in Rochester. Rochester's a good team. Syracuse and Rochester played 3 times this year. Syracuse has won 2 of the 3. They are a good team this year.
What are
Dylan Duke had a couple of goals too.
Off the top of your head, how is Stahoviak's numbers down there?
Well, I know he had 2 goals last night. Those weren't his first 2.
Yeah, just curious.
I mean, he's probably got maybe 4 to 5 goals, but they're winning. What are they, 7-2?
Yeah.
8-2, something like that? I'm sure some of our fans can tell us.
Yeah. If you want to weigh in, go ahead. Anytime you're asked that question, what are the Lightning going to do? And you say, well, Gabby, this is how I answer it. What you should say is, I actually just let Greg answer that question.
Well, I do sometimes.
Sometimes you do get that, though. I get it. I get it.
I say, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot can happen. If nothing happens, and like I think I answered it this way at one point, when the team was winning, and I'm like, look, if the team is winning, it's harder to answer that question. If the team starts not playing as well, I mean, I don't know if Coop feels this way, but it would seem to be an easier segue to replace someone in the lineup, particularly if that player is healthy. When Nick Paul is healthy, he's going to come in. Who comes out? Well, if the team is kind of mezza at that point, it becomes a little bit easier of a decision maybe, as opposed to a hard decision. But at the time we were asked that question, the Lightning were in the middle of a long winning streak.
Yeah.
I thought everybody was playing pretty well. Some players didn't play as well against Colorado. We talked about like Gord's line kind of led the way for them. Based on what you saw, all right, let me ask it to you this way, Greg. Mm-hmm. Based on what you saw specifically in the last game, and generally, since Girgensons came back and you have a line of Gord, Holmberg, and Girgensons, would you pull one of those players out of the lineup to create a space for Nick Paul?
One of those 3 players? No.
One of those 3 players?
No.
No. Why do you answer so quickly? Because they're playing so well, right? That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Now we can have fun if you want to start talking about the other lines.
Right, but maybe between now and the time that Paul comes back, one of those other lines starts looking like the Gord line.
Well, the other question is,
decision.
Do they go 12-6? When they come back, with him in the lineup, I think that would be interesting.
That is interesting.
What I suggest is that when Paul is ready, he will be playing. The question, I think, in that instance is it on as a wing on the second line or a centerman on the third? I think that's fair to point out. I think the interesting questions to me, it's going to come down to, do you believe that Dominic James should still be in the lineup? Or do you think there's somebody else that does come out? Now,
I think James stays in.
So you answer that pretty quickly. Why? Yeah. Even though he hasn't scored a goal, we like what he has brought to this team. There's an energy, there's juice, whatever you want to describe, however you want to describe James. We both like what we've seen from him, and we believe he should be in the lineup. So then you start getting into this question, okay, well then who's going to come out? If you've listened to this show and you really believe that somebody, you're going to have to make some uncomfortable decisions, is a guy like Gage Gonsalves somebody that is going to be in and out right now? To your point, things change, and somebody could go in a slump, somebody else goes in, gets hot, and it really becomes a moot point because that takes care of itself. But I think you and I are in agreement. I don't think you're touching the 4th line. I don't think there's anybody really you're taking off the first line, and certainly you're not going to sit a Cirelli or Hagel, assuming they're, together on the line, which they haven't been at times, but for the sake of this conversation, Paul is a regular. You have to bring him in, and then it's like Bjorkstrand, you're not going to sit him. You're just not. I mean, that's more of pedigree, veteran player. He's going to figure it out, and you brought him in here to help you and score goals. He hasn't exactly done it, 1 goal in 13 games, but eventually he will. So then, to me, it just becomes pretty easy who this conversation is going to center around. And so that's where people, when you come to the show and we give you that type of analysis, that's how I'm processing this information. And I think it's a fair way to go about it. It's a good problem to have, partner, because that means the Lightning have a lot of options. By the way, we haven't even talked about Douglas and Finley. In many ways, I feel bad for Finley. He can't get into the lineup. They say he needs to play.
He's got to wait his turn. That happens sometimes.
And that's the thing, too, with him is, you run into, because he has to clear waivers, right? And so you risk sending him down, although some would say if you send him down, is somebody going to take a flyer on him at this point? Maybe not. I mean, that's going to be a calculated gamble.
I don't want to totally speak for Eric Erlandson, and we had this conversation before the road trip. So maybe he feels a little differently now, but I don't think he would mind me saying what he said to me because he said it. Like, he feels Finley would get claimed. Or if not automatically claimed, a greater likelihood of being claimed based on the profile. Young, big, right-handed centerman. So I'm less convinced just because, as I've said numerous times as we've had this conversation, most players who go through waivers do clear, but you do run a risk of losing the player. And maybe the Lightning are factoring that in. I think in the case of Douglas, for sure they would lose him. Just because of his specific situation. They ran the lines in practice yesterday, just how they've been recently. In other words, Hagel is still with Point and Kucherov. Gensel is with Cirelli. Douglas filled out that line. You had James, Gonsalves, Bjorkstrand, and then the line that we talked about with Gergensons, Holmberg, and Gord, and kind of with them was Finley. So,
I mean, it's pretty clear. I think he's that last forward on the team.
Yeah,
with a big roster. I don't see that changing because I think they have found they clearly feel Douglas fits more of a need in certain games more than Finley. And look,
Douglas didn't play in the last game against Vegas. So Vegas has Kolesar, and he actually fought Lilleberg in the game, whatever, in late October. It was a Sunday, right? What are we talking about now? I'm losing track of days. A week and a half ago.
Was that last week?
Yeah, a week and a half ago.
I just said last week.
Right. So they didn't play Douglas in the game against Vegas. We'll see. And they didn't have Crozier then either. So Radish was the seventh defenseman.
Okay, so
we'll see what the lineup looks like tonight.
So let me just say this. And this probably doesn't speak well for Finley's case seeing the lineup or making an appearance. The Lightning are third from the bottom in faceoffs won this year, which means you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. They are struggling. What would you say Finley's strength is? At least one of them. Like if you were to say there's two strengths for Jack Finley. One, his size, and, he's defensive-minded. Sure. And the other one was face-offs, right? I mean, we talked about that in the preseason when we saw the guy. They're struggling to win face-offs. And while there's a lot that goes into it.
But he's not Glendening. So, look, if he had the percentage of a Glendening, that would be different.
He's not
Glendening. But his
Glendening.
profile as a righty would help. How much would it help, though? I'm just going to bring this up quickly and let you finish your thought.
Yeah.
Tomas Hertl comes into this game tonight. He's on Vegas. Number 2 in the NHL in faceoff percentage. He's at 62%. That is phenomenal. But you're going to understand why he's at 62% when I give you these two stats from 2 recent games. One against the Lightning. Lightning actually did okay in the faceoff circle against Vegas in the first meeting. I think it may have even been even total. Hertl went 10-2, though. Mm-hmm. And he is out there to take faceoffs, him or Eichel, on a power play. Now, Vegas didn't have a lot of power plays in the game against the Lightning, but if they get a bunch, look for Hertl to take faceoffs. Vegas is coming off a 1-0 win against Detroit. This was a pitcher's duel. Vegas had been struggling a little bit. They lost to the Panthers in regulation. They lost to the Lightning in overtime. They came back with a big win in Carolina, but then they came home and they lost the beginning of a 6-game homestand to Colorado. So, they haven't won of the previous 4 games. They'd only won once. They have Detroit coming in. Detroit got a good goaltending performance. Right. Vegas had 34 shots. They only scored 1 goal. It was 1-0. Vegas won 1-0. When you're in a tight game like that, face-offs are crucial. Tomas Hertl went 15-1 in the face-off circle. So I'm bringing this up simply to say that, yeah, you could put a right-handed centerman out against Hertl, but it didn't really seem to make a difference, at least in the last game. He is winning them so regularly. Now, maybe if you have a righty and Hertl's a lefty, so both guys would be on their strong side, maybe you're going to reduce the likelihood of him winning. But that's all I'm saying. Like, Finley would help, but he's not like, Superman flying in to rescue the day. I mean, that's a lot to put on him. He's played, like 4 or 5 NHL games in his career. You hope that he gets to that point, which is kind of what Eric was talking about. So I'm not saying that, Finley wouldn't potentially help a bit because the Lightning miss a person like that, but he's not at the point where he's going to come in, we can count on him to win 55% of his faceoffs. In fact, I think on the year he's under 50%.
I guess the only response to that would be you don't know until you play.
You don't know until you play.
And if your strength is winning faceoffs, we're never going to find out if you can do that on a consistent basis. And if the team is struggling, typically teams would be like, okay, look, if we're struggling to score, maybe we're going to bring in the guy who has a really good shot and has shown a track record. Yeah, he has deficiencies elsewhere. We got to find ways to score goals. That guy, we're going to see if he can do it because he's done it in the minor leagues. Let's see if he can do it because we need help. It'd be the same thing with a defensive defenseman. We're struggling to give up goals here on the back end. Maybe we got to sacrifice somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience at the NHL level but has a track record at the AHL to see what he can do. Point taken. Finley may not be an NHLer down the road. I don't know. But he's up here because part of his package that's attractive is that there is some track record of him winning faceoffs.
Yeah.
And if the team is struggling to win faceoffs, your point is taken. We don't know if that's going to continue, if he's going to come in and win 55%. I don't know. But my thing is, if that is his strength, the only way we're going to find out is if he gets into the lineup. And the fact that he's not in the lineup and the team is struggling in that department, something that potentially is a strength of his, I guess it doesn't look good on his part. He can't get into the lineup. I mean, if this team was winning 55% of the faceoffs, scoring and defending, you could see why John Cooper would be like, look, I mean, there's no need. We don't need to really put you in because we're not struggling. But they are. They're third from the bottom.
Well, that is true. But they basically went 50% against Colorado. And prior to the Colorado game, like there were games where they hung in there, like against Vegas. The games where they were on the wrong side of the face-off battle, they still won the game. And they outplayed the opponent, as we talked about. Talking about the recent stretch of time.
Sure.
So I guess the overall question is, like, how much is it actually moving the needle? I agree with you. That number needs to go up. But to the extent that the Lightning were able to navigate around their face-off problems in the games where they had face-off problems, they are 5-1 in their last 6. Now, on the other side of the coin, that first power play goal Colorado scored came after Gord was trying to win a face-off, turned his stick around to take it as a righty. They put Yanni on his weak side.
Right.
They intentionally had McKinnon take the face-off on his weak side because they felt he had a better shot on his weak side, forcing Gord to take it on his weak side or turn a stick around, which is, that doesn't guarantee you success. As I've said, it's like writing, if you're right-handed like me, writing left-handed. Like, it's still difficult. And McKinnon won 2 in a row, and the second one led to a goal. So it did hurt them last game. I'm acknowledging that. Is it enough to pull somebody out of the lineup? Before the last game, the team was winning. The team was doing well.
Sure.
I don't think it was enough for them to do that. We'll see what happens tonight. The other part of practice that I took note of is they spent a fair amount of time on the power play, which is not surprising. That's the other.
Really? Wait, come on.
I shouldn't even say it's the elephant in the room because that implies that people are like not acknowledging it, right? People are acknowledging this power play. 28th now in the NHL. Lightning haven't been that low let's just say a month into a season. I don't even know on how long. So the 2 power play units, you had on power play 1, Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Hedman, and Hagel. Hagel has been on that unit since the last game. Unit 2 was Cirelli, Gonsalves, James, Destu, and Bjorkstrand. 4 lefties and a righty.
Mm-hmm.
I will just tell you, so they practiced in zone, where they let the power play team have the puck, working around against penalty killers, and then they worked on the entries, which has been a little bit of a problem at times, but enough of a problem to contribute to this low percentage. Almost across the board, the unit that did better was the second unit, even in practice. Now, usually you're not scoring, right? I mean, but in terms of like executing, getting it around the ice cleanly, a puck to the net, the second unit was more consistently effective at doing that. The first unit was hesitant. They were bobbling pucks. And this is going to go back to what we talked about on the show yesterday. It's confidence. Like, they just don't have it right now. And with that first unit with Hagel on there, Hagel was at the right circle, which has been Kucherov's spot. Kucherov was at the left circle. And, they were trying, but it wasn't really coming together. Point was at the goal line extended. Gensel was in the bumper. On the second unit, Destu and Hedman at the point. Destu was at the point. They had a little bit more movement in there, but you basically had like Cirelli at the left circle on a strong side, James in the bumper, kind of Gonsalves at the goal line extended, Bjorkstrand on the right. Bjorkstrand is a righty. He's on the right. So he's on a strong side. I had a conversation with him earlier this year, and I said, when you played the power play in Columbus and Seattle, where were you? He's like, I was in the bumper or on the right side. I'm like, the right side, strong side, not available for a one-timer.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. He can shoot from there. He can score from there. We've talked about that. It's more of a wrist shot. He was doing that in practice yesterday. So he was getting the puck kind of at the top of the circle, taking a step to the circle, and snapping it to the net. So you've talked about him needing to get going. I think he understands that. We'll see if he has room to shoot on the power play. If the second power play gets time tonight, if they get an opportunity to set up in the offensive zone, they're not coming out there like having to enter the zone with 25 seconds left in the power play. That's not a lot of time. We'll see. But if I saw it, John Cooper and Jeff Halpern saw it too, that the second unit looked to be a little bit more.
You think it's just they just keep it simpler? Is that kind of just where it is?
I don't think that they have. I mean, the first unit feels like they're carrying around a heavy backpack, right? I mean, the second unit isn't carrying this weight around. Maybe the weight of expectations, the weight of frustration. They were entering the zone more cleanly. James was, slicing up the middle, and they were working it in. They also. So James was the guy. James was the guy who usually brought the puck up the ice. I mean, he didn't bring it all the way up the ice, but it ended up on his stick around the red line. Sometimes he brought it in, sometimes he slapped it in. A hard rim, and it went around the boards, sometimes to Bjorkstrand. Like Bjorkstrand's waiting, he's on his forehand because he's on the right side of the ice. Mm-hmm. He was able to stop it. They got in more than they didn't get in. And again, it's a practice. I mean, not to be like Allen Iverson, but I mean, it is different than playing in a game.
Can you do it in his voice? No.
Practice.
I love that.
Hey, we heard Brandon Hagel say it was a good, hard practice.
It was a good, hard practice. The thing, too, is the first unit and the second unit, it's just drastically different. I'm stating the obvious with what they want to do. I mean, the puck is stationary in many ways with Cooch.
Yeah.
You may see more action because of the people that you don't have a Kucherov on the second unit. So we understand it's hard to compare the two. I think probably the two guys who are struggling the most with confidence, and I use that term loosely because I'm not in their head. I don't know. But let's say two guys who want to get going even more on the power play would be Kucherov and Hedman. Those are two guys who usually make it happen, and they're not. Mm-hmm. To your point, of course they know that. The question is, what's it going to take for them to snap out of it? Is it just a big game
goal.
where they go two,
That's what
where they
it's
go
gonna
2
take.
for 3 and everybody
Yeah.
kind of gets a bunch of points on the power play? I don't know.
I mean, look at their power play goals, Greg. So they scored 2. So they've scored 6 power play goals this year in 13 games. 2 of those 6 came in the first period of the first game. That was with the top unit, Bjorkstrand and Kucherov. The other 4, Cirelli scored in Columbus. Kucherov missed that game. So that to me is almost like we can't even look at that one because it was a completely different unit, right? Then, actually, before that, points scored in Washington. That was with the top unit, and that was a play where Hedman wristed it from the point, and Braden Point had net front and tipped it in. That may be part of the way out of this for the Lightning, but they scored that one. Then the Columbus one where Kucherov was sick. Hagel scored against Dallas, right? And that was with the second unit.
Yep.
And it almost didn't. It was like almost I shouldn't say it was a lucky goal, but it hit Miro Heiskanen and barely went across the goal line. Am I missing one? That's 5. What was the other one that they scored? I'll look it up. My point is that the top unit since game 1 has not really gotten rewarded. And I think that that's had an impact.
I think that's fair. I think what's interesting.
Oh, the Anaheim game. That was a huge goal.
That was a huge goal.
I can't believe I forgot that one. That was with Cirelli out there, and Kucherov was at the left circle. That won them the game. So,
Yeah,
look,
it did.
that was maybe the biggest power play goal they've scored so far this year. So that was the last goal that really the first unit has accounted for, but that's been an isolated goal with a whole bunch of chances that they've had that, I mean, not only have they not scored, they haven't really generated much either.
Hit us up on X at Bolts Radio, and I think we covered a lot of ground there, partner.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, look, I mean, it was an off-day practice, and, it was interesting to see kind of what they worked on, and hopefully the work that they put in will help them. They're not at altitude tonight, and, they've had a day to kind of shake off the weird travel from post-game after the Colorado game, and hopefully they finish the trip on a good note. If they can get the 2 points tonight, this will be a successful trip. 2-1 is a successful trip on this trip, especially where we were saying this is a very challenging trip.
I agree. Can I tell you something off this topic?
Mm-hmm.
I just followed an interesting account on X. This is dangerous of me. NHL rumor report.
Yeah.
But
you're dipping your toe into maybe some uncharted waters there, my friend.
From what I'm gathering, though, they take snippets of actual reporters.
Okay.
So, like
Maybe
when I see Elliot Friedman,
may not be completely be in context, but go ahead.
Well, that's always fair. You always have to take that with a grain of salt. But they had something here about Steven Stamkos, which is interesting. And in this little snippet, I guess Oilers Now might be the site that they're taking it from. Potentially, it says, I think in Stamkos' case, if it comes down to where there's a team out there that he has a center that can get him the puck, I think everybody here would sit down and look at it. So, not saying anything crazy, because I have heard that, listen, we have taken the Stamkos conversation about, like, hey, what do you think? Could he come here? Could he come here? And basically what Elliot is saying, too, is I've been looking into Stamkos quite a bit. If they can't make it work and it doesn't get better, it's only a matter of time before everyone has a big conversation about what to do. Teams have called. It doesn't get into which teams, of course.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It is something that we have taken that question a lot.
We have
and I think
taken
because
some
the
of that,
power play and things
He
like
scored,
that.
I mean, you talk about confidence. He scored a huge goal for Nashville in their most recent game with, 0.3 of a second left. It got them a point
Yeah.
from his office, and it was not like a goalie wasn't set. I mean, like he had to drill it and place it. And he did. He got all of that. It came not from a center. It came from the defenseman, Blankenberg. So Blankenberg was at the right point along the boards. It was not an easy shot. I mean, the pass from Blankenberg to Stamkos, understanding the time is literally running out. I mean, Stamkos isn't along the boards, but he's in the circle. So it's going completely cross ice. And he absolutely hammered it and scored with 0.3 of a second left. So for his sake, I mean, you hope that helps his confidence.
It's what he does. And again, it was more of just bringing that up to everybody. Because
I'll be curious if you continue to follow NHL rumor mill or whatever it is. You know, the one, I have not followed this at all. And it may get retweeted by some people that I follow. I've seen it, but apparently there's an analytics site out there, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, but it's basically like NHL hockey scorecard or something like that. I've mentioned this before, where they rank every player after a game, and they use the, I think, expected, they don't say expected goals, but they use offense, defense, both for and against. So in other words, how much offense is your team generating? How well did you play defensively? And, you know, if you didn't do well, it goes to the left of the zero, like the other team is benefiting. Yeah. And when I first started seeing it, I'm like, okay, like, I don't necessarily agree with the rankings 1 to 18, but yeah, all right, I can kind of see that. The last couple I've seen, I'm like, this is so completely divorced from what I watched in the game. I mean, I shouldn't say it's a joke, but it's in the neighborhood of being a joke. So just be wary. You know what we should do? We should get one of these people who really does a deep dive on the advanced analytics and the advanced stats.
Make sure I'm not here for that show.
And try and separate what is valuable from what is not. Because there's a lot of information out there.
But aren't you going to have to talk to a GM though? I think to really
Well, I'm just
here's
saying,
the information. What do you think is valuable?
Well, the GMs have their own analytics departments. Julian Breezeball is not looking at this hockey card thing. Like first of all, he's watching the game. Second of all, the Lightning have their own analytics department. They are tracking the things the Lightning want tracked, which is much easier for them to do because they are focused on one team. They aren't trying to track this.
That's true.
You know, on the night that we had 32 teams playing, that's a lot of data to sift through. And obviously they have their formula for doing it. But I mean, I'd have to look at it again. But for example, to me, the 4 best players the Lightning had against Colorado were Andrei Vasilevsky, Yanni Gourde, Pontus Holmberg, and Zemgus Girgensons. But if you look at the game sheet and you see who scored for the Lightning, Kucherov and Point, okay, well, that's going to bump them up on this, ranking because they produced offense. Right. I get that. But if you watch the game, these were the 4 best players. And, I mean, they didn't rank Vasilevsky because they're looking at offense and defense. But, those 3 other guys were nowhere near the top. I'm just like, this is completely divorced from reality because if you watch the game, Colorado was saying, we're doing what we want to do. We're doing what we want to do. We're doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, Gourde's line is out there. We got to play defense now. That was not captured in whatever is being processed, maybe because the Gourde line wasn't actually getting a lot of shot attempts, but neither was the other team. So anyway, what I was saying is by getting one of these people that really know what they're talking about with the advanced stats, which I don't. I mean, I fully admit I don't pay a lot of attention to it. They would probably know beyond the GM which sites out there are more hitting the bullseye.
This is going to be a question. I agree with you. This is going to be a question that's going to maybe ruffle some feathers. I don't know. By the way, I got into sports. I'm curious how some other people feel about this because I didn't have to worry about numbers and math. It was the eye test. I mean, you knew who was
but
who was
numbers
good.
are a part of
They
sports.
are. I mean, like, and there's batting average and hockey.
Sure.
They're right. Let's have an honest conversation here real quick before we get to some questions. How many games have the analytics won for teams? These analytics that we don't see, how much is it moving the needle? Because we hear about them, and everybody has their own.
I think it's important enough that teams have their own staff.
But is it more about, hey, we noticed X player when he plays more than 18 minutes isn't as effective. We have to keep him between 12 and 15? Or is it, hey, we need to get this player because in free agency, because we know he scores from inside here 35% of the time, and we feel like that's going to make a difference with how our team is set up. It's one thing to identify it. Are you executing on that data? And is that data helping you in a major way win games and be a difference maker? Or do teams have it because, let's face it, it's the trendy thing to do? Everybody has it, and we want to make sure we're covering all our bases.
So I'll give you my opinion on it.
Because let me finish this. Because
go ahead.
in baseball, it has been proven under that Billy Beane model when it originally came out, because it's more of an individual sport. By the way, side note, my former teammate in high school, Brant Colamarino, was mentioned in that book.
Teammate in what sport? You played
Baseball.
baseball?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was a shortstop. He was a second baseman.
Nice.
But he was drafted by the Oakland Athletics in the 7th round. They have a funny line about his build because he wasn't ripped per se. He could hit.
Yeah.
But that was like on-base percentage, and they referenced him, and I always thought that was pretty cool. But in baseball, I think it's easier to look at those analytics because it is, first off, more of a numbers game. It is a one-on-one sport mixed into a team sport. And so the analytics, I think, make more sense when you are talking about the game of baseball because it also is a slower paced game. I think, and this, I don't know where you come down on this, partner, and a little bit like basketball, because things move so quickly, it is very hard to capture the true essence of the analytics, I think. And that's why I'm curious, do the analytics actually move the needle in a way that teams feel it in a positive way, like we would in baseball, where a team like the Athletics, who when that all came down when it first started, basically were able to take a team with a very small payroll and come within, a game or two of playing in a World Series, or at least competing very close to it. I'm curious. I understand in some sports it makes more of a difference. But does it make that much of a difference at all in a sport that moves so quickly? And I would say, from the eye test, no.
Well, I could see where you were going. You kind of cleared the path there. I'm
sorry.
I was able to
I'd like to have
determine
that
where the
conversation.
destination was.
But I'm curious, like these teams after the year, do they look at their analytics? And are they doing analytics in practice too? Well, Braden Point got up to 22 miles per hour. And we
Dominic
feel like,
James actually made the morning skate because he had the fastest speed in the
we know
hockey
he can skate,
action on Tuesday.
But
Yeah,
I don't know if this moves the needle.
Well, so I have a couple of things to say. First
Go
of
ahead.
all, somebody did an article on James. I'm not sure if it was Ed and Cena. It might have been Ben Pierce, but Julian, they got Julian to talk. I think it was Ed. I'm like, oh, Ed got Julian. That's so cool. Because Julian isn't usually like granting interviews to the reporters.
Did he get him in the bathroom?
I don't think it was there. Although I don't know. Ed has to protect not so much his source, because he quoted him, but the location of where the conversation took place.
All right.
But Julian said, we knew James had some tools, but frankly, we were a little surprised when we saw him, just like how fast he could skate. And like, he impressed them more once he got into camp than kind of where their expectation was. That's kind of sort of what Julian said. So you have to watch, right? You can't just, but they were watching him in college too. So that kind of goes to the conversation of like, scouts have to kind of operate with a little bit of faith, because you can't exactly like pull this player out and put him into a tougher league and know exactly how he's going to respond. Maybe the number one overall picks are more slam dunks usually, and you're like, this guy's going to be a superstar. We can see it, but for most players, it takes a leap. Like, you have to try and project, and that can be a hard thing to do. Here's what I'll say about the analytics for teams. Mike Peterson runs the Lightning's hockey analytics. He's been with the organization for, I mean, it has to be now 15 years. I like him a lot. We see each other. We chat. Has a family, all that. I don't think he's ever said boo to me about what they actually look at. And, you know, I know enough not to ask him a direct question, but, you know, a couple of times I've been like, you know, this, and he's like, zip. Like, they keep very much under wraps what it is they're looking at, which I understand. So, and I think a lot of teams probably are like that because they don't want to reveal exactly what it is that they're looking at. They aren't broadcasting it literally to people outside the circle.
Yeah.
Like, would a scout come to me and say, I'm really watching this guy in the Western Hockey League? I mean, that's kind of where it's at, right? So you said, how valuable is it? And you said, are teams doing this because it's in vogue? I think a team that doesn't have any analytics would be behind.
That's fair.
The rest of the pack.
I think
in
fair.
Hockey, I agree with you. Hockey is way different than baseball, and it's harder to find the nuggets. Like, which is why I think teams don't just look at expected goals, right?
Sure.
They're looking at very specific things that the GM and the GM staff are like, we want to focus on. Look at this. We want to see how effectively the Lightning are coming out of their own end, let's say. Like, who's making plays to get us out of trouble? I mean, you could look at that, right? You have to look at it very specifically, but you can track it, right? That's why the team analytics are different, because they're looking at very specific things that are specific to that individual team. So not having that at all, I think would put a team behind the eight ball. But relying on it to the extent that you're like, this is the Bible for us, this is 100% what we're going to go on, that is not right either. It has to fit in with what everybody else is doing. The eye test. So if you have people who are providing the eye test, and then you have the stats, the advanced stats, to give you another piece, if those two things complement each other, now you have better proof, right? That a player you may be interested in will actually, you know, help you, as opposed to the analytics say this, but it may not be entirely accurate. So teams probably have a sliding scale. If you looked at the 32 teams, some teams maybe don't rely more in the analytics, but maybe they place more emphasis on the analytics alone, and some teams may place less emphasis on the analytics alone. And that's a little bit of a guess by me, because we never had a GM come to us and say, you know, this is how we incorporate our analytics department.
This is a guess.
I think that they are needed. In this day and age, they are needed.
I don't disagree. They're also a job creator, by the way, which I can appreciate.
Look, those math people who get their math degrees, there's an opportunity to work in sports. I don't know that was the case 20 years ago. No, for sure.
Yeah. I will say this too. I think also another reason why they don't share what analytics they're looking at, you know who can use that to their advantage? Agents. I mean, if they know, if my client is up for a deal, and I know that the Lightning value my client very much so in the metric space, and he's very valuable, I don't know if they share that information. They may not. If they don't, there's a reason probably why. Now, I could go to X website and look at that and say, hey, on Puck Media NHL, my client is 5th in zone time in the last 10 minutes of each period out on the West Coast. Like, I mean, you can get really crazy with some of those metrics. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Why would teams share that information as well, openly?
Yeah.
For various reasons. Dusty the dog says,
yeah, we should get to some questions here, boy.
Why not ask
45 minutes like
That's
that?
okay. This was interesting. I hope people enjoyed the conversation. Why not ask Coop about how he uses analytics? Because he's not going to answer that question.
Yes.
That's why.
And I'm not
Dusty.
sure how much Coop has enough going on.
Yeah, he doesn't want to answer that question.
I mean, he may have a
wouldn't ask
question about analytics,
No.
and they can get the analytics department to get him information.
that. Julian would be the guy to ask.
Julian would be the guy to ask.
I think because you're out there acquiring players too and drafting. Listen, in the NFL, you talked about this before. NFL is different, mainly because of how popular it is. And there's so many scouts that do magazines and they evaluate. I mean, this is where the draft comes in. It's televised. It's a whole ordeal. I used to cover that in Pittsburgh. I mean, you're at a round table with coaches talking. You get into what do you look for in a player? And especially when you get in the later rounds, you start looking more at the metrics than you do a lot of times. Maybe where does he play? We just take the best athlete available. A lot of times that comes down to, well, look, he ran a 4.2 as a inside linebacker, but we think we can move him to free safety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if the analytics too come into play with players switching positions. Groshev might be an interesting
Yep.
case study. Because there's something, the eye test obviously said he's not doing what we want as a forward, but there might have been something there with the skating, maybe how quickly he was doing for coming out of his breaks, where maybe that skill set translated better as a defenseman, and maybe there were some metrics there that they could look at and say, yeah, I actually think that works.
Well, I think part of it was Joel Bouchard with the eye test.
That's
When
that's
they
a big
made
part
the
of it.
switch, he's like,
That's a big part.
I think Groshev could do this. And then they can start gathering
Getting into
data. I saw the Stahoviak goals last night, and
Yeah.
one was on the power play, and Groshev fed him the puck. So Groshev's playing
Oh, good.
power play with
Good.
Destu gone.
Yeah.
Right? Destu would
Somebody's
have been on
got
the
to.
power play. Yeah, and by the way, Steve
Yeah.
gave us the stats on Stahoviak. He's got 4 goals, 4 assists in 10 games.
Almost a point per game.
And Syracuse
That's
is
good.
8-2.
Yeah, that's good. I do want to get to this reef rum read. It's smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. There are no metrics on Reef Rum either, so we will, that is what it is. Chris says,
That's the tongue test. Right?
That's right. As an accountant, I love the analytics and think they are extremely valuable. I agree some of the stat card sites are off as it's heavily based on the algorithm. Analytics is one of the large reasons teams move from 2 defensemen to 1 defenseman on the power play.
That's
Is that
interesting. Well,
true?
thank you, Chris.
I don't
And
know.
Chris
I mean,
is a
that would be a-
regular, yeah. Chris
Chris,
is a
that's
regular
fascinating.
contributor. They've had 1 defenseman in the power play for a long. I almost feel that it precedes the time when the analytics came in vogue in the NHL. I may be
Remember
wrong
when
about that.
You remember when the Penguins would put 5 forwards, and that was well before the analytics came in. So
Yeah.
I think some of it. I also think some of it is the changing of the times. I don't know if that's because the analytics force you to change. I agree with you. Now, are the analytics showing us the way teams are entering the zone on the power play where they do that drop pass with another
Yeah.
forward coming?
Well, there
with
are
speed?
sites out there
Maybe.
that talk about zone entries.
So maybe there's analytics there. I don't know.
What
I
I
don't
took
know.
from Chris's comment, though, he said it is based entirely on the algorithm. There's the problem. Because when we were talking about how a GM makes a decision, at least in the case of, I think, most, if not all GMs, they have the analytics, and then they have their scouts. And they're melding the two. These analytics sites, they can't rely on somebody watching a whole game and providing input as to whether their algorithm is off a little bit. So that's why I was wondering if there are some sites that are better than others. And I keep talking about the methodology, but Chris has the language. It's the algorithm. I wonder if some sites have a better algorithm. Honestly, I mean that's really what it comes down to.
And I just think some sports are better with analytics than others.
Yeah, baseball's algorithm is more of a black and white.
I mean, are there algorithms in golf? I mean, I get, it's slow. It's slow. I think once you start getting into basketball, football, even though there's a stop and start component, the NHL, I think a lot of it is the eye test. Look, are the analytics telling us that the league is going to smaller and more skilled players? Or is that just how the league is going? The open ice, more penalties being called. I mean, this was the reason that you saw a lot of people say, the 5'9", 5'10" guy is back because they're calling more penalties, partner. And so there's more ice. I don't know if analytics is involved in that as much. Now, maybe you may take a guy in the 6th round who's 5'8", but you feel like, around the power play, he's got soft hands. We feel like he goes to the hot zones more in the offensive zone and can be a very good player at the NHL level. Maybe there are analytics there to support that case. I just don't know in hockey if it is something that I can completely get behind. Alan says analytics should be just a tool. If you totally rely on it, it can backfire. 2020 World Series Rays versus Dodgers, need I say more?
So I'll actually take this to what we just saw in one of the most remarkable World Series. I mean, I haven't really watched a lot of baseball in the last several years. I watched enough of that World Series to say that, like, this is one of the most remarkable World Series that I've seen. Just the number of unique plays that were made, another 18-inning game, and the way Game 7 unfolded. So you can make the argument that Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, made a couple of decisions that at least in part were based on analytics that saved the World Series for the Dodgers. Notably, the guy that he put in center field, if you watched the Game 7, Greg, the Dodgers made a switch in the bottom of the 9th of a tie game where, I don't know if he did it when the Jays got the bases loaded or he did it before they got the bases loaded, but basically it was the bases loaded, right? And he made a switch of his center fielder, and wouldn't you know it, like the 2 out to make it 3 outs got hit to left field, and this guy runs over and he knocked over Kike Hernandez. He caught the ball, right? Now, if the other center fielder had been in the game, maybe that ball drops because the Dodgers were playing in. Maybe that was an analytic decision that was wrong in that instance. So the analytics can help you, but at the end of the day, somebody needs to make a play, right?
Well, that's true.
That center fielder made the play. The out number 2, the guy who hit the home run in the top of the 9th is at second base. He'd been out of the lineup earlier in the World Series, and he saves the game for the Dodgers where they had the infield in. He snags the ball off balance. He throws it at home. They got the guy out by literally inches. So maybe it was an analytics decision for the Dodgers to okay, we're going to bring the infield in this situation. That was probably obvious with bases loaded. And this guy is going to be in the game. He's going to be at second base. But he had to make the play, too.
I mean, look, at the end, that's what it's going to come down to. You are going to physically have to make a play. I am just saying, I think you agree, in baseball, you can do a whole shift based off of, if we pitch this guy inside, we know he's not pulling. He's probably going over here, so I'm moving my shortstop over to the second baseman. I mean, it's gotten so bad in baseball, right? They have talked about outlawing that type of thing. I mean, that's where the analytics really has made an impact, for sure. Again, it's just more of, in hockey, is it harder to judge? Dusty comes back and says, I'm not saying what specific he looks at, just does he use it for certain things?
So what I will say, Dusty, is the Lightning coaching staff, and then it includes Coop, but I don't think Coop is doing it as, he has his staff doing a lot of this, but he'll look at it too. They watch video after a game. And so the Lightning have 2 video coaches, Nigel Kerwin, Brian Garlock, and I'm convinced, not only do they go through a game after the Lightning have played it, they pre-scout the next opponent. They get that. They, set it up for Jeff Halpern's okay, I want to see what this penalty kill looks like. And they'll do a pre-scout, right? But what they will also do is provide the last, 5 games of every shift that Eric Chernak has had. Not just for Eric Chernak, but in case the coaching staff wants to look at it. It's like Cherney's really like doing well. Can be the opposite too, but let's say he's doing really well. I want to see, the last 2 games, I want to see every shift that Chernak has had. And maybe they use it as a video tool for the team. It's like, this is what Cherney's doing. This is what's helping us. So I think that's how they spend their time. Not so much, which of our players is entering the zone most efficiently. That's probably more on feel and eye test. Who's going? Why did the Gord line get so much ice time against Colorado? Coop was on the bench. He's like, they're going.
Aaron has a couple of questions. He says, guys, getting back to the Colorado game, Hedman made some really good plays with the stick breaking up potentially dangerous chances, but the turnovers off his stick have come at a great cost. He also says, let me get to this. So the question is Heddy just slowly working back to his baseline, or could he be on the decline?
Well, I'm not going to address the second one because I have no idea. That's a 30,000-foot view question.
If you want to talk about metrics, that would pick up.
that
would pick up some stuff.
So in the last 2 games, he's had turnovers that have led to 2 goals against.
Yeah.
What the fan mentioned about breaking up plays, when I said I didn't think the Lightning played very well on yesterday's show about the Colorado game, I should mention that and it was really their defensemen. I think McDonough and Chernak each had 5 blocks, but these wouldn't even qualify as blocks. There were some almost plays that Colorado had, like set up, usually involving McKinnon and Natchez, and the Lightning were just able to like disrupt those plays. That was not Vasilevsky. There was no shot. And so the Lightning deserve credit for hanging in there against 2 world-class players who were looking to make a play, and they just managed to disrupt some of those plays, and maybe Hedman was one of them. I remember McDonough doing it a couple of times. So, look, they should get accolades for that because those were really, really important plays. I won't change my overall take that I felt Colorado had the better of the play. But, I mean, I think that you've said this, Greg. For the Lightning to get where they need to get and want to get, Victor Hedman needs to be, one of their best players. So, I mean, he has had turnovers that have hurt the Lightning this year.
We've talked about this a lot. The way the NHL is constructed. It's great to talk about depth, and the Lightning have it. It's great to talk about coaching, and the Lightning have it.
Mm-hmm.
You need your stars. You need your stars. And the reason why we've liked the Lightning over the last decade is because their stars have performed, for the most part, during that time at a very high level. What people also don't take into consideration is what happens if one of those stars starts to decline at a time when you didn't think that was going to happen. I think you need to give time for Heddy to work it out.
Yeah.
I think you owe that to him because he is somebody who has played a lot of minutes.
And it's been a mixed bag. I mean, I think that he's done some things well. I think it was in the Dallas game. I really liked his game, and he was doing that. He was getting in the way of some shots with his stick.
Yeah.
But, you look back at that Washington game, too. He had the turnover when the Lightning were on the penalty kill right before Wilson scored, and we talked about it after that game. So, I mean, he's had an up-and-down year so far.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of been indicative of the team. They've righted the ship here a little bit, but I think his play has been up and down. And I think you would anticipate he figures it out. And look, Aaron, if he doesn't, and we're still having this conversation 30, 40 games in, then those conversations are probably going to be happening not only externally, but I can assure you probably internally, like what's going on here. And that's going to be a bigger discussion. But I think until then, you give the player who's been consistently one of the best defensemen in the league time to figure it out, and that eventually the track record indicates he will. Time will tell. And that's what we have. Speaking of time, 9:30 pregame, 10 o'clock start for the game tonight. Should be a good one. Looking forward to it. And
Vegas didn't have a great game against the Lightning. They do have Hannafin back, which is certainly going to help.
That's going to help. They didn't generate a lot of offense. I think that's what we noticed. And so maybe that changes tonight. I don't know.
And, Vegas has caught attention, let's say, / flack for signing Carter Hart. He is not yet with their NHL team. So they have 3 goalies listed. Adin Hill is hurt. Then you have Lindbaum, who played very well against the Lightning.
Yeah, he was great. Do you think
and
we see
lost
him
to
tonight?
Colorado. So he's 0-1-1. I don't know if we're going to see him tonight. But then Akira Schmid is the other goalie, former Devil, and he's had a great start to the year. I think he's maybe 8-1-1, something like that. He had the shutout in the last game against Detroit. So, we'll see. They got good goaltending in the first meeting, but they didn't get much else. So I'm sure they're going to be motivated to play better. In the Lightning, look, they should bounce back from the Colorado game. Like internally, they should be like, we can play better.
Yeah.
And we want to play better, and we have a chance to finish this trip on a good note. Let's go get it.
I agree. And then afterwards, you and I will be doing our show.
Yeah, a late night power lunch show tonight for tomorrow.
Please stay up with us, though.
We mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah, get those questions in. We would love to do that, and we'll break it all down. Nick says, any blackjack for Dave today?
No, I'm not really a gambler.
You're not a gambler.
I'm really not. Can I say that this is not one of my
You don't like this trip?
top destinations?
Yeah. Did I tell you I was just in Vegas not too long ago?
You did. Yeah. Did
was-
you notice?
it was
Well, I don't know
interesting.
if you've been here a lot. Did you notice that it was less traffic-y, foot traffic?
There wasn't.
I have noticed.
There wasn't a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I've noticed.
really
And I
wasn't.
wonder if some of that is just, the state of play right now, that fewer people are coming out here to spend money. I don't know.
be.
But I can tell you just my own experience walking around, it's
Yeah.
a little less crowded than it has been in other times that we've come to Vegas.
Yeah, I think if you like to gamble and do all of that, it's fun. If you don't, you're just kind of like, I'm around people, I want to just leave.
Well, you can see shows too.
I guess that would be fun.
That's less of a gamble usually.
Yeah, the shows are pretty good.
It's going to be good.
Right, depends on what show. The shows
But the
are pretty
money
good,
is
though,
going
right?
in one direction for the
Yeah,
tickets.
it's not coming back.
Your return
not-
is enjoyment of a performance.
That's right.
Not three aces on
That's right. That's right.
the slot machine or whatever.
Well, I will talk to you tonight
Yeah.
as we get a little closer to the puck dropping, and then I'll talk to you afterwards for the our show.
All right. Sounds
Great job,
good.
partner. Hope everybody loved or liked the conversation today, and we'll talk to you in some form tomorrow. Thanks to Steve Ersnick for producing. Always appreciate that. I'm Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.